The millionaire pretended to be blind to test his fiancée. What he discovered broke his heart. Morning at Whitmore Ranch was too quiet. Sunlight spilled through the big window, touching the messy sheets and the tired face of Ethan Whitmore. He opened his eyes, stared at the ceiling for a few seconds, and let out a long breath, one of those breaths that felt heavier than air. The same thought crawled back again, the one that had haunted him for months. Does she really love me? Or just the name Whitmore? He stood up and walked to the window. Outside, the world he'd built spread endlessly, the vineyards glowing under the Texas sun, horses cutting across the yellow fields, the barn roof shining like bronze. It was everything a man could dream of, yet he felt nothing but emptiness. Emily had been gone 5 years now, and this house hadn't felt like home since the day she left. A soft knock. "Dad?" Mike, his 9-year-old son, rolled in on his blue wheelchair, holding a paper still wet with paint. "I made you something." Ethan smiled, taking it. In the drawing, a man led a horse beside a boy in a wheelchair, the wooden ranch house behind them, wrapped in sunlight. "That's really good, kiddo," Mike grinned shyly. "Are you going to ride Blaze today? I want to watch." Ethan hesitated. Blaze, the black stallion Emily had ridden on her last morning. The accident that took her also took Mike's legs. He set the drawing aside, crouched to face his son. "Maybe I will, buddy. After breakfast." A woman's voice floated from the doorway. "Ethan, your coffee's cold." Madison Clark entered, flawless as always, white dress, high heels, perfume that filled the air. She smiled, but it never reached her eyes. "Good morning, Mike." She paused only a second. "Shouldn't you be with your tutor by now?" Mike's smile faded. "Yes, Ms. Madison." He wheeled away without another word. Ethan's eyes followed his son, then turned back to her. "You could be a little kinder to him, you know." Madison shrugged, pouring herself coffee. "I'm just saying he needs discipline, Ethan. You spoil him too much." He didn't answer. He just watched her, realizing how distant she felt, how carefully polished. When she left, Ethan stayed at the table, tapping a finger against the cup gone cold. From outside came the sound of Madison's car engine, a sharp, sterile sound that belonged to her world, not his. Later that afternoon, he went to the stables. The sun bled gold across the valley. Blaze came trotting over, snorting softly. Ethan ran a hand through the horse's mane and murmured, "You know, buddy, people can be scarier than storms." He gave a half smile, but his eyes were tired. Then it hit him, a wild, reckless thought that felt too clear to ignore. What if I pretended to lose my sight? Would she stay? He almost laughed at himself. It sounded insane, but maybe insanity was what truth required. He needed to know who Madison truly was before she stepped into his son's life. That night, he called Dr. Collins, the family doctor and old friend. "You sure you want to go through with this?" Collins asked after hearing the plan. "I have to," Ethan said quietly. "If she loves me, she'll stay. If she doesn't, better to find out now than later." The doctor sighed. "All right, I'll help you. But Ethan, remember, some wounds don't heal, especially the ones you can't see." When the night settled over the ranch, Ethan sat by the window, a glass of wine untouched beside him. The moon hung low over the vineyards, painting silver lines across the field. In the reflection, he saw a man who had everything and somehow lost it all. He whispered to the empty room, "Emily, you'd tell me not to do this, but I need to know. For Mike. For me." Outside, the wind rolled through the grass, carrying the distant sound of horses. Ethan closed his eyes, knowing that when morning came, nothing would ever be the same again. That morning, the Texas sky was as clear as glass. The sun climbed slowly, painting the vineyard in gold. Ethan Whitmore stood beside Blaze, the black stallion he'd trusted for years. His hand tightened on the reins, a pulse of fear and determination running through him. Today, he would start the biggest performance of his life. From the porch, Madison Clark appeared in a white dress and sunglasses, a smoothie in hand. The wind brushed her hair, but her eyes were cold. "Riding Blaze again? I thought you were scared of that horse since Emily's accident." Her tone was light, but not caring. Ethan gave a faint smile. "Scared? Not really. Just remembering how to hold on." Madison smirked. "Just don't fall, okay? I'm not calling the doctor again." He held her gaze. "Don't worry," he said quietly. "Someone will." He pulled the reins and Blaze surged forward, galloping up the dirt road that curved through the vineyard. Sunlight spilled over Ethan's shoulders, wrapping him in gold, a man riding straight into the fate he had chosen. 10 minutes later, a scream tore across the ranch. "Mr. Whitmore fell. Call Dr. Collins." Madison's glass slipped from her hand, shattering. She ran, heels sinking into the dirt, breath ragged. Ethan lay near the fence, blood streaked down his temple. Blaze stood close, snorting and stomping the ground. "Ethan! Oh my God, Ethan, can you hear me?" He groaned softly, eyes half open but unfocused. I can't see anything. It's all dark." Madison froze. Fear flickered for a second, then vanished, replaced by calculation. She clutched his hand. "Don't say that. You're just dizzy. You'll be fine." He murmured again, weakly, "No, Madison, I can't see." When Dr. Collins arrived, he played his part perfectly. After a brief examination, he turned to her. "The impact was hard. I'm afraid he's lost his vision temporarily. We'll have to wait and see." Madison's eyes widened. "Lost his sight? You mean he might not recover?" Collins shook his head. "No guarantees. It could be days, months, maybe forever." After the doctor left, Ethan lay still, eyes hidden behind bandages, listening. Madison's breathing wavered, then steadied. "Poor Ethan," she whispered. "But I don't know if I can handle this. Taking care of a blind man, and Mike too. I'm not a nurse, Ethan." The words landed heavy. She didn't know he was awake, didn't know every syllable cut deeper than the fake wound on his head. In the days that followed, her mask began to crack. She grew irritable, impatient. When Mike spilled water on the floor, she snapped, "How many times have I told you to be careful? You're driving me crazy." The boy lowered his head, wheeling himself away in silence. From the next room, Ethan's hands clenched. At night, he sat in the dark, listening to her voice through the half-open door. "I swear, if I have to live like this any longer, I'll lose my mind. A blind husband, a crippled kid. What did I do to deserve this?" Her laugh was bitter, sharp, and when she realized he might hear, the room went silent again. "Thank you, Madison," he thought. "You're giving me exactly what I needed." The next morning, she set a cup of coffee down. "I talked to Dr. Collins. He thinks we should hire someone to help around the house. I can't do everything." Ethan nodded slowly. "If you think that's best." Her smile was thin. "Good, I'll handle it." When she walked away, Ethan turned toward the window, feeling the wind hum through the vines outside. He knew it then. Madison's act was ending, and the next person to walk into this house, Sophie Alvarez, would change everything. The morning wind carried the scent of ripe grapes across the Whitmore estate. Madison walked down the hallway, the sound of her heels sharp against the wooden floor. All she could think about was finding someone to take the weight off her perfect shoulders. A blind husband, a helpless kid, everything that once looked glamorous now felt like a burden she never signed up for. And then, as if fate decided to answer, Sophie Alvarez arrived that hot afternoon. She stepped off the ranch truck with an old suitcase in one hand and a crumpled printed job post in the other. 28, petite, sun-kissed skin, calloused hands, and eyes that carried both fear and quiet hope. She'd taken the job not just for herself, but to keep paying for her mother's treatment. As she looked up at the big white house standing proud in the middle of the vineyard, she felt a twist in her stomach. She had never seen a place so beautiful and so far from her world. The door opened. Madison Clark stood framed by the sunlight, hair gleaming gold, a white dress hugging her figure. Her gaze swept Sophie from head to toe, sharp and dismissive. "You're the new help?" "Yes, ma'am. I'm Sophie Alvarez." Strange name," Madison muttered, a faint smirk curling her lips. "I'm Mrs. Whitmore, for now. You'll clean, cook, and help with the boy when needed. Got it?" "Yes, ma'am." Madison tilted her chin. "Good. I like people who don't talk too much. Your room's behind the kitchen. Don't wander around." Her tone sliced through the air like cold steel. Sophie just nodded, gripping her bag tighter as the housekeeper led her away. The room was small but tidy. When the door closed behind her, Sophie sat on the edge of the bed and looked out the window at the fiery sky. For a moment, the image of her little boy Miguel came back, the weak smile, the coughing, the tiny hands that had once held hers. Pneumonia had taken him, but poverty had killed him first. She'd worked 3 cleaning jobs and still couldn't afford the medicine. Since then, life had felt like walking through fog, every breath heavy with guilt. "I'm still trying, baby," she whispered. "I have to, so you'll know I never gave up." The faint sound of wheels rolling in the hallway broke her thoughts. She turned, and there he was, Mike, the boy she'd heard about. Brown hair, soft eyes, curiosity glowing through the sadness. "Are you the new lady?" he asked shyly. Sophie smiled. "I guess I am, and you must be Mike." "Yeah, it gets kind of lonely here. No one really talks to me." His voice was barely above a whisper. Sophie knelt to meet his gaze. "Do you like to draw?" "I used to. I drew horses, but not anymore." "Why not?" Mike lowered his eyes. "Mrs. Madison said horses are for people who can walk." Something twisted inside Sophie. She gently touched his arm. "Listen to me, Mike. Your dad may not see with his eyes, but he sees with his heart. And your legs might not work, but your imagination can take you anywhere." Mike looked up, his eyes shimmering. "You really think so?" "I know so. And if you want, I'll help you draw again." A small, genuine smile broke across his face, his first in weeks. From the hallway, Ethan Whitmore stood still, one hand on the doorframe, bandages covering his eyes. He said nothing, just listened. Sophie's voice flowed through the room, gentle, honest, alive. It felt like a warm current moving through the coldest part of his chest. "That woman," he thought. "She's seeing the world the way Madison never could." Moments later, Madison appeared, her presence sharp as ever. She froze when she saw Mike laughing, a sound she hadn't heard in months. "Mike, time for your lesson. Don't bother the maid." Her tone was clipped. Sophie rose quickly, but before Mike could leave, she bent down and whispered, "Keep drawing, okay? Don't ever let anyone stop you from dreaming." Ethan heard every word. He turned his head slightly, a strange ache blooming behind his ribs. For the first time in years, he heard his son's laughter echo through the house. A small sound, but enough to pierce the darkness he'd built around himself. Sunset cast a golden glow over the Whitmore ranch. Ethan stood by the upstairs window, fingers tracing the wooden frame, where he often paused to listen to the sounds of the world he could no longer see. Below, Mike's laughter rang out, bright and free, blending with Sophie's soft voice. He listened quietly, feeling every note of their conversation. Since she arrived, the house no longer felt like a tomb. It was alive again. In the garden, Sophie and Mike sat by the vineyard, sketch papers scattered between them. "Miss Sophie, yesterday Mrs. Madison said that when she marries Dad, she's sending me to a boarding school." Mike's voice was small, trembling. Sophie froze, pen still in her hand. "Do you want to go?" "No, it's far away. I don't want to leave Dad." She placed a gentle hand on his shoulder. "Listen to me, Mike. No matter what anyone says, your heart knows where it belongs. And I promise you, your dad's heart will never let you go." The boy looked up, his eyes glistening. "You really think Dad won't let them send me away?" "I'm sure," she smiled. "Because your father doesn't see with his eyes. He sees with his heart." From the balcony, Ethan heard every word. Something shifted inside him, a warmth he hadn't felt in years. Her words wrapped around him like light breaking through fog. Behind him, Madison's heels clicked across the floor. "Still standing here? Careful, one more fall, and you'll be blind for real." Ethan turned slightly, voice calm. "Just listening to Mike laugh." "Laugh?" She let out a dry laugh. "Oh, right, the maid. Smart girl. She knows how to make herself indispensable." "She's just being kind," he replied. "Kind?" Her tone sharpened. "You're too easy, Ethan. People like her, kindness is their favorite costume." He didn't respond, but in that moment, the truth became painfully clear. Madison was beautiful but hollow. Sophie was simple but full of life. Dinner that night unfolded under the glow of candles. Madison sat across from him, her smile painted on. Mike tried to feed himself, his small hand trembling, soup spilling on the tablecloth. Madison's sigh cut the silence. "Mike, you've spilled again. You're not a toddler. Eat properly." "I'm sorry." "You say that every time. Why can't you just act normal?" The room went still. Ethan set down his spoon, voice low but firm. "That's enough, Madison." She arched a brow. "I'm only teaching him discipline. If we're getting married, I should—" "You won't have to worry about that." Madison blinked, stunned. Mike quietly backed his chair away and wheeled himself down the hall. When the sound of his wheels faded, Ethan turned to her, calm but burning inside. "Because I never said we were getting married." Her face hardened. She slammed the wineglass down, red spilling like blood. "You'll regret this, Ethan. Nobody rejects me and walks away clean." Her heels struck the floor as she stormed out. Late that night, the house was wrapped in darkness. Ethan sat awake in his study, unable to shake the unease growing inside him. Then he heard it, Madison's voice, low and venomous, drifting from Mike's room. He followed the sound and stopped at the cracked door. Inside, Madison stood over the boy's bed. "Listen, kid. Once I marry your dad, you're gone. You're nothing but dead weight. You killed your mother, you know that?" Mike whimpered, tears running down his cheeks. "That's not true. It wasn't my fault." "It was. If it weren't for you, Emily would still be alive." The door burst open with a crash. Ethan stood there, the bandages gone from his eyes. His gaze burned like fire. "That's enough, Madison." She froze, face pale. "Ethan, you can see?" "Better than ever, especially now." He stepped closer, voice cold as steel. "You insulted my son. You blamed a child for an accident that broke us all. You're done here. You can't just get out of my ranch. Now." Her mouth opened, but one look at his eyes told her she had lost. The sound of her heels echoed down the hall as she vanished into the night. Ethan turned back to Mike, sat beside him, and gathered the trembling boy into his arms. "It's okay, son. I'm here. I won't let anyone hurt you again." Mike clung to him, crying softly. Outside, the wind swept through the vineyard, carrying the scent of sweet grapes and something new. Peace? In that moment, Ethan knew the darkness was gone. The one who had brought back the light was not Madison. It was Sophie. Since the night Madison left the ranch, peace had finally returned to Whitmore Ranch. Every morning, Sophie made coffee for Ethan, then joined Mike in the vineyard. The air smelled of grapes and sunlight. For the first time in years, the house felt like home again. But somewhere far away, a storm was quietly forming. In a dim Dallas bar, Madison sat across from Lauren Pierce, her old college friend. Lauren looked sharp, her red lips curved in a predatory smile. "He really kicked you out?" Lauren asked, her tone dripping disdain. "Yes, for that maid. She stole everything from me." Madison's nails dug into her glass until her knuckles turned white. Lauren leaned back, eyes glittering. "Then take it back. Don't go after him. Go after her. Make him believe she's just another liar." Madison's mouth curved into a thin smile. "I'm listening." Lauren's voice dropped to a whisper. "A theft. Simple. Effective. You still have a copy of the old key?" "He changed the locks." "No problem. I know a locksmith. We'll make a duplicate. You hide something valuable in her room. Say, that diamond necklace of yours." Madison's smile widened, hatred flaring in her eyes. "Perfect. And when he finds it, he'll throw her out himself, just like he did to me." The plan went into motion days later. Lauren arrived at the ranch disguised as a delivery driver, a small box hidden in her bag. That night, when everyone was asleep, she crept into Sophie's room. Moonlight spilled across the floor as she opened a drawer, slid the diamond necklace between folded clothes, and slipped out without a sound. 2 days later, a man in a gray suit appeared at the front gate. "Jules Carter, private investigator," he introduced himself. "Hired by Mrs. Madison Clark regarding a stolen item." Ethan frowned. "Madison? I thought that chapter was closed." "Just doing my job, sir. She reported a missing diamond necklace, worth $30,000. She believes it was taken here." Ethan wanted to refuse, but the man was too official, too practiced. Jules began his inspection. It didn't take long before a shout echoed from downstairs. "Found it!" Everyone rushed in. Jules held up the diamond necklace, shining under the light. It was hidden in Miss Sophie Alvarez's room. Sophie froze, her hands trembling. "No, that's impossible. I've never seen that thing before." Jules scribbled on his notepad. "You'll have to come with me for questioning." Ethan stood silent, expression unreadable. Sophie turned to him, eyes filled with tears. "Please, Mr. Whitmore, you have to believe me. I didn't do this." Inside him, two voices fought, heart and reason. The evidence was right there, but everything in him screamed she was innocent. Police arrived and sealed the necklace as evidence. Sophie sat in the living room, pale and shaken. Mike held her hand. "I believe you, Miss Sophie," he whispered. "I know you didn't do it." She hugged the boy tightly. "Thank you, Mike, for not leaving me." That night, Ethan couldn't sleep. He sat in his office, staring at the sealed evidence bag. Something didn't add up. His instincts, those that once saved him in countless business wars, told him this was all a setup. The next morning, he called Blake Johnson, the family's lawyer. "Blake, I need you to dig into a man named Jules Carter and into Lauren Pierce." "Lauren Pierce? Madison's friend?" "Yes, I think they're behind this." 3 days later, Blake returned with a file. "You were right. Jules Carter isn't licensed. His credentials expired 2 years ago, and the lock on Sophie's door shows signs of a duplicated key. Guess who ordered that key? Lauren Pierce." The revelation hit like thunder. Ethan rose, eyes hardening. "They thought they could outplay me, but this time I'm the one setting the stage." Blake hesitated. "What are you planning?" Ethan smiled faintly, voice low and sharp. A trap. If they love lies so much, I'll make them choke on their own. Outside, sunlight poured over the vineyard, glinting on every leaf. Ethan stood for a long moment, then turned toward the house where Sophie sat quietly, shoulders trembling. He knew what he had to do, protect the truth and the woman who had brought him back to life. 3 days after uncovering the evidence, Ethan stayed silent. He waited, calm, calculating, like a chess player planning his final move. From the outside, Whitmore Ranch seemed peaceful, but inside, a storm was ready to break. That morning, Sophie was in the kitchen arranging dishes when Ethan walked in, his voice low and steady. "Sophie, we might have some visitors today. Don't worry, just carry on as usual." She looked up, her eyes still shadowed with sadness. "Visitors? Who?" He gave a faint smile. "Old ghosts, time to say goodbye for good." By afternoon, 2 luxury cars stopped at the gate. Madison stepped out first, beautiful as ever, but with triumph gleaming in her eyes. Beside her was Lauren Pierce, impeccably dressed, smug and self-assured. They entered the living room where Ethan stood waiting. At a side table, Blake Johnson, the family lawyer, sat quietly, a small recorder placed before him. "Ethan," Madison purred, her voice sickly sweet. "I'm glad you called. You realized you were wrong, didn't you?" Ethan nodded slightly. "Maybe I was too harsh. Maybe you acted out of hurt. I don't want to end this in bitterness." Lauren smirked. "Smart man. No one likes to be known as the fool who dumped Madison Clark." Ethan's lips curved in a cold smile. "Maybe a fool once, but not blind. Not anymore." The air shifted. Madison frowned. Lauren's confidence wavered. Ethan signaled to Blake. The lawyer pressed play. "Of course I helped Madison set her up. It was easy. All I needed was a copied key, the necklace, and that fake investigator. Ethan will never suspect a thing." It was Lauren's voice, clear, undeniable. The room fell silent. Madison's face drained of color. Lauren's mouth fell open. "What the hell is that?" Lauren stammered. Blake rose calmly. "Your confession, recorded during your meeting with my associate yesterday. I believe the police will find it. Illuminating." Madison took a step back, panic rising. "You set me up." Ethan's voice was cold, precise. "No, Madison, you set yourself up." Sirens blared outside. 2 officers entered the room, nodding to Blake. "Mrs. Madison Clark, Ms. Lauren Pierce, you're under arrest for false reporting, unlawful entry, and attempted extortion." Madison's composure shattered. She struggled as the officers led her away. "You'll regret this, Ethan. I loved you." He stared at her, unflinching. "Love doesn't make you cruel." When the doors closed, silence filled the house again. Sophie stood at the doorway, hands clasped tightly, tears glistening. Ethan walked toward her. She tried to speak, her voice trembling. I don't know what to say. I thought I'd lost everything." He looked into her eyes, resting a gentle hand on her shoulder. "You don't have to prove anything, Sophie. I've always believed you, even when no one else did." Her tears fell freely as he pulled her into his arms. "It's over now," he whispered. "No one will ever hurt you again." From the porch, Mike rolled forward, a bright smile spreading across his face. "See, Dad? I told you Miss Sophie didn't do it." Ethan knelt beside him, hand on his son's shoulder. "I know, son. Thank you for believing in her, and in me." The 3 of them stood together as the evening light wrapped around them, warm and golden. For the first time in years, Whitmore Ranch finally felt like home. After Madison and Lauren's arrest, peace finally returned to Whitmore Ranch. Morning light poured through the windows, touching the wooden floors with warmth. No more shouting, no more cold silences, only laughter, the smell of baked bread, and the sound of life finding its rhythm again. Sophie Alvarez cared for Mike as if he were her own son. Each morning she helped him study, read aloud together, then wheeled him outside to play with their dog, Max. His laughter carried across the fields, often making Ethan stop whatever he was doing just to listen. One afternoon, Ethan stood on the porch watching Sophie and Mike beneath the golden sun. The boy spoke excitedly about the pictures he wanted to draw. Sophie nodded, listening with a patience that glowed in her every movement. The sunset painted her hair in amber light, and for the first time in years, Ethan smiled, a real smile. That evening, the kitchen smelled of spices and warmth. Sophie was cooking when Ethan walked in. "What's cooking that smells so good?" he teased. "My mom's Mexican recipe. Might be too spicy for you." He raised an eyebrow. "I can handle more than you think." She laughed. "Are we talking about food or life?" "Both." Their laughter mingled with the clinking of pots and pans. They moved easily around each other, hands brushing, glances colliding, then darting away. Words weren't needed, just the rhythm of their hearts, learning each other's pace. Later that night, after Mike had gone to bed, Sophie cleaned the kitchen. Ethan entered, holding 2 glasses of wine. "I think I owe you a thank you," he said softly, "for bringing laughter back into this house." She shook her head. "I didn't do anything special. I just cared." Ethan set down the glasses, his gaze steady. "No, Sophie, you did more. You made me want to live again." The firelight flickered. The air between them thickened with unspoken words. He stepped closer. "I stopped believing in everything, especially love. But then you came along and suddenly I could feel again." Tears glistened in her eyes. "Ethan." He reached up, fingers brushing her cheek. "May I?" She nodded. Their lips met, slow, tender, full of the promise neither dared speak. It wasn't passion, it was healing. A small sound made them pull apart. Mike stood by the door, grinning. "I knew it. I told Max that Miss Sophie would be my mom." Sophie blushed. Ethan laughed, ruffling his son's hair. "Looks like it's official then." "Yeah," Mike declared proudly. Laughter filled the kitchen, spilling into the quiet night. But peace never lasts forever. In Dallas, Madison Clark sat in her father's mansion, free on bail, her beauty hardened by rage. She stared at her reflection and whispered, "You think you've won, Ethan Whitmore? I'll take back everything by taking what you love most." At dawn, Ethan opened Mike's door and froze. The bed was empty. The wheelchair lay on its side. The window was open wide. On the desk lay a white envelope. Inside, a single note. "If you want to see your son again, bring $1.5 million. No police. Wait for our call." Ethan's hands shook as the paper fell. His heart pounded painfully in his chest. Sophie rushed in, her face pale. "Ethan, where's Mike?" He looked up, voice breaking. "They took him." He strode to the safe, grabbing a bag of cash. "I'm going alone." Blake arrived just in time to block his path. "No, Ethan, that's what she wants. Don't fight Madison with anger. Fight her with intelligence." Ethan stopped, staring at the note, jaw tight. Then he nodded slowly, voice like steel. "All right, then we'll play her game, but this time we finish it." Rain pattered against the rusted roof of the old warehouse at the edge of the ranch. Dim light spilled through the cracks, revealing Madison Clark, her face twisted with rage. Behind her, Mike sat tied to a chair, gagged, eyes wide with terror. The sound of a car engine echoed outside. The door creaked open. Ethan Whitmore stepped in, coat soaked with rain, clutching a bag of cash. "Madison, I brought the money. Let him go." She laughed, the sound sharp and broken. "You think it's that easy? You took everything from me, Ethan. Now I want to see you suffer the way I did. He took a cautious step forward, voice trembling. "Madison, please. He's just a child. If there's any humanity left in you—" She cut him off, eyes blazing. "I lost everything. My name, my freedom, my life because of you, because of that maid, and now you want mercy?" She raised the gun, aiming at Mike. The boy whimpered, shaking. Ethan fell to his knees. "Please, Madison, if someone has to pay, let it be me, not him." Madison's voice cracked as she screamed, "Now you'll know what it feels like to lose everything?" The gun went off, but the bullet never reached its mark. Sophie burst from the shadows, slamming into Madison's arm. The shot went wild, the bullet shattering the wood behind Mike. Ethan lunged forward, tackling Madison to the ground. The gun skidded away. Outside, sirens wailed. Blake rushed in with 2 officers. They restrained Madison as she thrashed, screaming, "Madison Clark, you're under arrest for kidnapping and attempted murder." She struggled, shouting hysterically, "It's her fault. That woman stole him from me." But her voice drowned beneath the storm, carried away by the rain. Sophie collapsed to her knees, trembling. Ethan rushed to untie Mike and pulled him into his arms. "You're safe now, son. You're safe." The boy clung to his father, sobbing. Sophie knelt beside them, tears mixing with rain. Ethan reached out, taking her hand. "It's over, Sophie. It's finally over." Mike looked up, voice shaking but full of hope. "We're a family now. Right, Dad?" Ethan met Sophie's gaze, her eyes shining softly through the storm, and nodded. "Yes, Mike, we are. At last." 3 months had passed since that stormy night. Spring arrived, carrying the scent of new earth and tender vines rising from the damp soil. Whitmore Ranch was alive again, with laughter, sunlight, and peace earned through pain and courage. This morning was unlike any other. The soft chime of the chapel bell echoed across the valley. White and yellow flowers lined the aisle, and Sophie Alvarez walked slowly down in a simple wedding dress, holding a bouquet of wild daisies. Sunlight streamed through stained glass, painting her face in hues of serenity and joy. At the altar, Ethan Whitmore waited, dressed in a modest gray suit, his eyes fixed only on her. When their gazes met, everything else disappeared. All the pain, the loss, the fear, gone, like a bad dream fading with the dawn. Mike wheeled his mother down the aisle, his smile bright and proud. He looked stronger, braver. His therapy was working. Doctors said he might be able to stand with crutches soon. When they reached Ethan, the pastor's voice filled the chapel. "Today, we witness not just the union of 2 hearts, but the birth of a family." Ethan took Sophie's hand, whispering, "You're the miracle I never saw coming." She smiled, eyes glistening. "And you're the home I never thought I'd find." Their kiss sealed everything, the pain, the past, the promise of forever. Applause broke out, and in the front row, Sophie's mother, now healthy, wiped tears of joy from her eyes. That evening, a small celebration lit up the garden. Fairy lights swung gently above the vineyard, the scent of pastries and music filling the air. Mike ran around showing guests his drawing, a picture of 3 figures standing in a field of flowers, beneath the words, "Our Family." Sophie placed her hand over her stomach, feeling the faint stir of new life. Ethan covered her hand with his. "I've been thinking of a name," he said. "Tell me." "Emily, for the woman who taught me how to love, and the one who taught me how to love again." Tears shimmered in her smile as she nodded. The sun dipped behind the hills, wrapping the vineyard in gold. Ethan, Sophie, and Mike sat together among the blooming vines, their laughter echoing through the warm twilight. The storm had passed, the night was over, and a new dawn had begun.